I've been looking at some new ONS data on wages and income, and it looks like we seem to have achieved managerial socialism somehow. I don't remember this being a stated aim, but nevertheless, we seem to have arrived at that point. It's long been a socialist concept that, from each according to their abilities, to each according to his needs. The idea, but basically, if you can contribute more, you contribute more, but what you receive back out of it is actually what you need, and that should be determined by some set of socialist principles, not the way that you would expect a modern first world economy that wants to be successful and productive to run. However, let's have a look at these new ONS figures, where they're basically showing the clustering effect that a whole range of government policies over the decades have had, which seems to have the result of pushing almost everybody, regardless of whatever it is that they do, to earn somewhere in the region of 30 to 50k a year. Irrespective of how much time, effort, training, and education went into the role, how many hours it demands of you, whatever else it is, we kind of want to get you between 50 and 30 grand a year, maybe 10 grand either side for, extreme cases. Take a look at this. So this is the last, most recent set of ONS figures. And in fact, let's show you to the top what I'm talking about. Here we go. Employee earnings in the UK 2023. And I kind of want to start with this this clustering graphic here, which makes my point quite nicely that everybody is being pushed to this. Here we go. Everybody is being pushed to this sort of narrow range, kind of irrespective of what it is they do. So before I give you further thoughts, let's just pick out some examples. So pick a profession, an occupation. Aerospace engineer. That feels to me, I fly on planes, and I quite like the fact that they land correctly after having taken off. So I think aerospace engineers should generally be quite a high-paid profession. Let's have a look. Oh, there they are, 46. So, it's at the high range of what we consider acceptable these days. But 46, that's the average full-time wage for an aerospace engineer. Okay. Aerospace. Let's try and find something. Okay, let's contrast that with air travel assistants. I presume they mean air hostesses. I appreciate there is some training in it, and I appreciate it's not the easiest job. So I'm not degrading it at all. But I do think that the people who build planes that hopefully don't fall out of the air are basically of a higher quantum of importance to the economy, and to me personally, because I fly on these things, and the person who serves the drinks, they're coming in about 30 grand. Why is there such a small difference between the two? Let's pick out some more and see if we can get some other interesting comparisons. So let's have a look. Architect, yes, I go in buildings and I don't want them to fall down. 45k. Okay, interesting. Years and years of study that has to go into being an architect, but okay. What else have we got? Barristers and judges. Well, I have mixed feelings on this crowd of people, but I can't dispute that a huge amount of learning and dedication goes into getting to this position. Barrister is an extremely hard position to get into, and judge. Here we go, 52. So again, it's the higher range of what we're looking at. But again, everybody is kind of being pushed within this fairly narrow band. Let's compare that with, bar staff. There we go, 18k. So it is at the lower range, but it's not. When you bear in mind the fact that we're currently on this push to exempt everybody earning below 20k from paying any taxes. And as soon as you get above about 40k, the tax rate really starts to ramp up. You can kind of see that, actually, when it comes to discretionary spend, there's not actually that much of a vast amount of difference between the two. I mean, yes, the barrister on 58 is going to be earning a good sight more and going to have more money to hand. But the amount of taxes he pays is going to be ramping up quite significantly. And should he be earning, not that much more than twice somebody who just sort of thought, well, yeah, I'm not doing any of that. I'll just walk into a place that has a shortage of staff and I'll pull some pints. Again, not denigrating people who work at bar staff, but you get to have a slightly more relaxed go at your 20s than spending every waking hour doing another bloody exam. What else have we got in here? Let's try and find something. Oh, electrical engineer. I was going to say, do tell me in the comments if I go past anything interesting that you want me to stop on. So electrical engineers, again, I think these people do something pretty bloody crucial. I mean, they keep the lights on, which, as we saw from Spain a couple of weeks ago, is actually not a given, especially when politicians are ramping up the green energy side of things. What's the implication of electrical engineers sort of failing to do their job? Well, I could die in a shower of sparks, or the lights could be turned off, swiftly followed by pressurized water, and I could starve when the shops run out, and I would be collecting rainwater in the garden. So I kind of want these people to be very well paid and for there to be a meaningful difference between something else. And yet here they are at 53. Again, everybody is being banded. Let's see what else I can find. Farmers. Now I want these people to be way well paid, because otherwise, again, aforementioned starving. 30k. Really? I mean, this is one of the... That and energy are some of the most fundamental things that we do, and they're there. Okay, let's find something else. Let's try and find something middle ground, shall we? Hang on. Let's have a look at this. Inspectors of standards and regulations. Now, if we're going to save money anywhere, it should be these people. They should be on about 14k. Oh no, 35. There we are, square in the middle. So if you want to have no cares and concerns, maybe work a bar. I mean, why not? You don't have to study anything for that. And if you want to spend every waking hour, do one of the aforementioned difficult jobs that we talked about. But if you've got a little bit of hustle and you want to make everyone's life difficult, then you can sit squarely in the middle of the pack there by being an inspector of standards and regulations. Isn't that encouraging? Right, what else we got? Actually, I know. Let's pharmacist. Pharmacist is a good one, because that has historically been, a very well-paid job, as I think it probably should be, because you are speaking to people who have a malady, and you give them some sometimes quite powerful substances, and if you get it wrong, you're infecting people's health quite severely. So you've got to get it right and quickly and communicate well and a whole bunch of other things. Pharmacists, 46, reasonable, but doesn't stand out that much, does it? I mean, again, everybody is being pushed into this range. Police officer, bloody 44k for a police officer to go around arresting people for Brexity books. Good Lord. Okay, fine. Wasn't expecting that. Rail travel assistance. Don't know what that is. Good God, 36. For assisting rail travel, I don't know what that actually involves. I mean, presumably people working on the platforms or something. 30, that's not bad at all, is it? Oh, toolmaker. We have to cover toolmaker because Keir Starmer endlessly reminds us his father was a toolmaker, and there we go, 36 grand on that. So look, there's just a couple of examples, but the key point I'm making is, because of the approach of saying we're going to relieve tax as much as possible on the lower end, that lower end is kind of going away, and you can see from the shape of these bubbles is that people are being squeezed as much as possible upwards into the band, and because of high taxation levels, there's this corresponding pressure from the other side to squeeze people down into the cluster. So what you're actually ending up with is a society where almost everybody is earning more or less the same, with a little bit of difference, with a little bit of extra on it. Speaking as a former quite high earner myself, there was a period where I looked at my pay slip one day and I realised that through the combination of taxes, I was paying about 10 grand a month in tax, not a year, a month. I was paying that much in tax, and I did it for a while, but I did have to do an awful lot of professional financial exams and very long hours, and didn't get to see the home life much, as a bit busy. And after a while, it just sort of occurred to me, it's like, well, what's the point? I think my income tax rate at one point was about 52%, I seem to remember. And then, of course, you've got all the additional taxes that come on top of it. And then in order to earn a wage like that, I had to live in London. So I paid an absolute fortune for a semi-detached house, which was, reasonably nice, but not really, because it was in London. And the rent the rent that I was paying to the bank, the mortgage on that was quite excessive. And at some point, it just occurred to me, I think I'd be better off just earning, even less than half as much anywhere else. Just get out of this city, just go and do something a little bit more normal. And the other effect, of course, that it has is, if I were to return to that type of role again, I would find a way of making sure that I work 3 days a week, because let's say I could command, by way of example, 100k. I'd much rather do 3 days a week for 60k, because actually the difference above that, most of it just goes away in tax, and you end up really not seeing the sort of benefit from it. Let's go up and see if we can draw anything else out of this ONS data, because I think there's a couple of other interesting points in there. So let's scroll down to this one. So employee earnings and hours worked. So full-time and part-time, gross wages. So the earnings have been pushing up. The thing that you've got to bear in mind is the inflation effect. I'm sure they try and adjust it for inflation, but of course inflation is underreported. The secondary effect of that inflation effect is, as you get pushed, as inflation pushes you, it pushes you over those tax boundaries that were established decades ago. So higher rate tax that kicks in somewhere in the upper 30s or 40 grand a year, something like that. That tax banding was set, could it be back in the 80s, possibly earlier than that, where 40 grand was an astonishing amount of money to be earning. These days, it's actually not. I mean, a lot of people watching this video are going to be on, the 40k mark or approaching it or slightly over it or something like that. You probably don't think of yourself as a very high earner, and yet that's what the top rate of income tax is supposed to be. It pushes people towards that level. So there's that. Another thing that I found interesting was, let's see if we can pull up. Here we go. Earnings between men, women, full-time men, part-time women, part-time men, and part-time women. What are we seeing here is women's earnings have been outpacing men's. I guess we're not doing that gender pay gap thing anymore. But what's more interesting is, look, there's been a drive towards full-time women. Why is that? Probably because if you want to have a decent home in a decent area, the wife almost certainly needs to work. And suddenly not do anything like stay at home and have children and raise them. The other thing that we worry ourselves about, of course, is the fact that we've got collapsing birth rates. And well, it's not surprising, because if you are a young couple and the woman doesn't work, then well, basically you don't get a house, or you don't get to live anywhere even vaguely nice. So there's a push to full-time women. But the big growth has been in part-time men. Again, for that effect that I described earlier, it's that, even now at Lotus, I do 4 days a week. God knows how I got up to 4. But I mean, ideally, I want to be working 3 days a week, because my earning is such that basically I just feel that I'm just giving up too much time for the amount of time that I put into it. Now, of course, if I'm not earning, then I'm not paying tax, and I'm not feeding this great socialist machine. If there isn't the ability for people who can add more value to do so and reap the rewards of it, well, why would you bother? If you're a high earner, you'll just find a way to do less hours. You make yourself a contract and you do 3 days a week, something like that. Whereas on the lower end, women are being pushed into full-time work and out of the home. See if there's anything more on there. Oh, again, yeah, this is basically describing the effect. You can see this here in the ONS data. Total numbers of hours worked. I mean, it's over a 20-year period, And of course, there's sort of a regular band of hours that you might work. I mean, there's a standard 37 and a half hours that a lot of people do, and this is capturing the average. And as you can see, it's been sort of trending downwards. It's a little bit flat over this period, but the trend has been downwards. You are not incentivized to work, and therefore you don't. And I suspect the only thing that's holding up this line is that at the lower end, so many women are being pushed into work as opposed to becoming mothers and contributing to that birth rate. I suspect if you were to do a version of this chart that looked just at men, you'd find that the decline is even sharper. It's only those women forced into the workplace that are supporting this. So, I mean, I'll leave this here, but the key summary is, let's go back to that table of data again because it makes my point so well. We have become a country which, through sort of managerial socialism, has managed to achieve what the socialist revolutionaries of the early part of the 19th centuries were trying to achieve but could not, which was to create a society where everyone is equalized in the earnings that they do. I mean, okay, I guess that may appeal to them, but as somebody who flies on planes and goes in buildings and has, presumably at some point is going to need an operation of some sort, or I want to make sure that the lights stay on and all the rest of the technical, clever, important stuff by people who spend a hell of a long time studying in order to do that, have to be very clever and work long and diligent hours. I want a society in which they genuinely can shine and earn more. And fine if you want to, if you want to do something which is very light on the requirements, that you get paid less, but not a situation where everyone gets squished into the middle and then you apply exorbitant tax rates, progressive tax rates to the top that that strip you of your earning potential, while at the same time exempting everybody below whatever it is the current goal, 20 grand. From actually paying any tax, because it just squeezes these incomes together. And more than that, the more that you do this, of course, the more you exempt people at the lower end of tax from actually paying tax, the less interested they are in the subject of tax, because it doesn't affect them. And therefore, they are more likely to vote for a set of policies or vote for a government which can be reckless on the tax front. And it's hitting the high side of this hard. You can see this most extreme in the examples of the millionaires. There was a report done only a few years ago which found that, in one couple of year period, 50,000 millionaires left the UK. And they're not going to be paying tax anymore. I sort of address this question fairly often. Every time there's a UK budget, I sit down and I look at it and I think, is this the year that, the taxes get to the point where I just think, especially in my case, taxes on savings, is there a point where I just think, okay, I'm going to quit this? And this society doesn't work. You need to reward excellence. Otherwise, it's not just the rich that suffer, it's everybody, because you can't afford to pay for this bloated, expensive welfare state.